everybody, I'm Joey Paul and I'm an indie author and welcome back to my channel. I write young adult fiction across a variety of genres, and if you think that might interest you, then think about subscribing below. Before I jump into everything, I know that I have been gone pretty much from all social media and all of my updates and all of that since about October. I'm going to get into what happened. I'm not scripting this. I don't know how well I'll be able to caption it based on because of some of the long-term effects of what happened. But I just thought that the first video back, I would let you know basically what happened to a degree. I will also say that before it happened, I had already pre-recorded a few videos. One of them is no longer relevant, but a few others are. So the next few videos after this, you're going to see me in a hoodie, even though it's like May this time round when I'm recording. So just remember that those were done before everything happened and before everything went wrong. And now I'm just trying to find a way to move forward. So for those who don't know me, I'm Joey. I write young adult fiction, as I said, and I'm also chronically ill and disabled. I have a variety of chronic illnesses, and we're going to get into how they basically tried to kill me. So if we go back to October, I had just been diagnosed with a new condition that was ongoing in the fact that we kind of suspected I had it before that. It had been a long road to getting a diagnosis. And so I can't remember the dates, and I'll explain why in a moment, but I can't remember exactly when I was diagnosed. I know I saw a neurologist sometime in early October, and she basically told me that I have a functional neurology disorder, which is otherwise known as FND. I didn't really get a chance to really process all of this. I didn't get a chance to tell anybody really, because on the 20th of October, I woke up with, you know, normal sort of like headache and stuff like that. And I just wasn't feeling well. I don't remember if I worked that day because, as it will soon come clear, my memories of that time are either gone completely or so hazy that it's hard to pick out what happened when. But on the 20th, I had a fever. I was treating it. I thought, you know, I didn't even know what the issue was. It wasn't a UTI or anything else like that. I didn't need to get my cath looked at. It was just, I didn't feel good. I spent most of the day in bed sort of like chatting with my best friend and carer B, and sort of saying, you know, oh, my Fitbit says that I've done this many zone minutes, because my heart rate was so high, even though I was literally lying in bed. Anyway, the rest of this is going to be told as basically from what B and my other people in my life have told me, because like I said, I don't have solid memories. I know that it's sometime on the 20th, I got up to do something and I fell. I know that I called out for B, and I know that between the two of us, even though I only have really sort of like snippets of memories of this, I just remember calling for her, and sometime later I was back in bed and all was fine. We kind of thought, you know, okay, we'll just keep an eye on it. Anyway, then came the 21st. B went off to work cleaning that morning. Normally when B gets up in the morning to go to work, I am already up, or I am staying up, because this is when she gives me my breakfast and stuff like that. So that morning she checked on me and saw that I was still asleep, which was kind of unusual for me, but she knew that I hadn't been feeling well the day before, and she figured, you know, it's only 2 hours cleaning, she can get breakfast when I'm back. Anyway, I don't remember what happened. I don't. I know one of my BFFs in Finland messaged me and said, hey, there's been no social media from Joey. She hasn't messaged me even just to say, I'm not feeling good, I'm not going to be around today. Like, there's nothing. Can you check on her? I also know that at one point my mum, because she knew I wasn't feeling well the day before, had messaged me on Facebook Messenger and had, you know, asked how I was. I went back and looked at it later because I couldn't work out how she worked out things were as bad as they were. And it turns out what I sent back was just nonsense. It wasn't even words. So she tried to video call me. It didn't get answered. And so then she reached out to B. B got these messages and she was like, okay, I'll check on Joey when I get home. And she got home and she found me on the floor. And the last thing I remember from the before times is hearing B ask for an ambulance. I have no memory of being taken to the hospital. I have no memory of being as sick as I was. I was in ICU for a week in a coma. I'm told, because like I said, a lot of the memories that I do have are very sort of like twisted and bitty, and my brain was making up scenarios that weren't actually real. So it's kind of hard to remember what was real and what turned out just to be brain fun. So I'm on ICU. I'm very, very, very sick, to the point where my mum and B, because my mum turned up at the hospital once B had let her know, because, like I said, my mum reached out to B and said, hey, something's not right. And B then reached out to my mum once we got to the hospital and was like, yeah, you're right, something is very wrong. I'm told that basically that I was unresponsive. I came very close to dying, to the point where, because of my ongoing health issues and the fact that I'm exceptionally fragile, with the sepsis, that's what the problem was. I had very, very serious sepsis, and we didn't know what the infection was. We still don't know what the infection was. It went down as like undetermined. But because of the sepsis and because of how medically fragile I already was, the decision was made that I wouldn't be given life-saving measures if it came to that, and also that there would be a do not resuscitate order just on that case. My mum and B had to make these decisions, and like when I woke up, obviously I woke up, when I woke up, you know, we talked, they had to kind of give me information in like very small bites. I remember waking up and being absolutely sure that we were in Cornwall and we'd had a car accident. No idea. And I kept like asking, like, you know, B and my mum, you know, where are we? And I didn't understand why my mum was there, because if we were in Cornwall, which just so you know, it's a 5-hour drive from where I live, I didn't understand why, if we were there, why was my mum here already? Because, you know, Cornwall isn't close. And yet, so they told me multiple times, you're in the hospital at home, your regular hospital. I mean, even on the ICU, because of situations like this happening with like other patients, they have on the wall, this is this ward and this is the hospital that you're in. But my brain was just too busy just being stupid, basically. My first kind of like solid memories was several. It was like the last 3 days that I was in hospital, because I was in ICU for a week. And then I was moved to basically a normal ward. But even then, like, the memories and the ideas, like, I kept thinking that it was going to be Bee's birthday and that I'd missed her birthday, even though her birthday is in August. And again, this was October to November. So that didn't make sense. My parents, my mum, my dad, B, we had several conversations where they would just sort of like try and work out what I was trying to say, because it wasn't making sense. There were concerns that basically because of the high fever and because of everything I'd gone through, that maybe there would be long-lasting damages mentally, emotionally, you know, intellectually, basically. And of course, then, you know, when I woke up, we found out a second problem that was long-lasting. Yeah. So I know that if you've seen any of sort of like the small snippets of social media posts talking about where I was, or just letting people know how I was doing, because I had a lot of people reach out to me on Instagram and DMs and stuff, and obviously I couldn't answer them. I was supposed to send my book to my editor on November 1st. I usually send it early, and I remember like first sort of like looking at my phone when I was able to actually look at it and thinking, seeing the message from Robert and being like, oh, yeah, that sucks. And all I could say, he was sort of like saying, I know you're normally really organized, so I'm slightly concerned that I've heard nothing from you. And then all I texted was like, in ICU, and he was kind of like, yeah, you focus on that rather than the editing. So yeah, the long-lasting effect is basically that my right hand, that's as wide as it can go. I can't grip. I have feeling, but it's nerve pain. That's the feeling I get, which is just awesome, thanks. 3 fingers are basically always in that position. This finger, I can move a little bit and I can type a little bit, but when I was in hospital, I only had my phone and my tablet, and both keyboards were impossible. It led to so much frustration. For a time, I was doing voice memos rather than typing, but the problem there was that because I also wasn't fully recovered, and because I was really struggling to, like, you know, get the words to make sense, a lot of people ended up sort of feeling like, I don't know what you're trying to say, and I don't want to ask you to repeat yourself because I can hear the effort it's taking you. Yeah, so I had a lot of support. I will admit that. I had my best friends. I had my mum. My mum was in my corner the whole time. I had like all the support hospital. I had to relearn basically how to stand, how to walk. The little bit that I did, I had to learn how to transfer again. I had to learn how to wheel, because obviously this hand was not wheeling. I could go out, I could do it with this hand, that's fine, that's my left hand. I will just point out that I am right-handed, so it wasn't easy. There was a lot of like adaptation, there was a lot of having to get like new tools. Like I'm sure you might know, because I posted it on here, I think. I ended up having to buy a new keyboard and mouse to basically make it work for myself, because the keyboard I had before, the keys were basically too crowded, and where this hand doesn't have much movement and doesn't have much ability to type, it would just, I would type either one-handed, and even then or I would try and use both hands and would end up with just 3 or 4 words with no spaces in the middle, because I couldn't. So that was very frustrating. For a time, we didn't know if I was going to be able to go back to writing. You know, being brutally honest, I did not know whether basically my career was over. I ended up sort of like telling myself, oh, I'll take the rest of the year off and then I'll go back to work. I think at that point, I still hadn't really processed how serious it was and how close to dying I got. I do remember, like, you know, doctors, because it's my home hospital, I know a lot of the doctors. I've met them in some capacity or another, and I remember a lot of them sort of like poking their head in and sort of checking on me, and it's hard to explain, because I have some memories, but not enough of them to piece it together to work out how I was. Like I said, it was really only the last 3 days that I was in the hospital that I was A, back to my normal self, and B, able to kind of like hold a conversation without it being too taxing. I did struggle to eat. I will be honest, I did not eat anything for the 2 weeks that I was in hospital, because I just didn't feel well. Every time I tried to eat, I would end up throwing it back up. And so like we got home, and like, you know, before the sepsis, B had been concerned because I wasn't eating much anyway. And then, you know, after there was a period where we kind of like had to slowly reintroduce like food to me. So that sucked. We went through so many different changes. B has been my main carer for a very long time, like decades. But because of our home situation, we needed to have her go out to work. So Mix K, which is B's child and kind of my child, even though not biologically. Just to be clear, me and B are not a couple. We are best friends. We are BFFs. Yeah, just want to clear that one up. So Mix K became my day-to-day carer, because obviously I couldn't do anything myself. I couldn't get myself a drink. I couldn't do all of that stuff. And it meant that I needed someone. That had already been in the plans by the time the sepsis happened, but it kind of sort of like dropped us all in the deep end. B has a very good job that she loves, and it's awesome, and it works around our schedule. So she will feed me in the morning, and Mix K will keep me hydrated during the day, and you know, if I need to have food, they'll do that too. So it's been a very long road. I've done physio, I've had to have a lot of adaptations done with the OT. We've had a few more aids added to our house, and it's just been a lot. My plan at the moment is to go back to work officially on June 1st. Like I said, I know I'm recording this in May, but I'm also not doing a full day work. When I go back to work in June, I will be doing 2 projects. That's it. And the only reason I'll be doing those 2 is because I'm hoping to send Visible, which is one of them, to the editor in November, and the other one is Fifth Agony, which is the 5th and last Cramming Chronicles book that I want to send to the editor in April. But the issue is I need to kind of like balance and work out what actually works for me now, because obviously my past way of working is now in the past. Like, I've stopped waking up at obscenely early hours. I'm normally up now between 3 and 4. I'm usually closer to 4. So it allows me to have a bit more downtime during the evenings. So it means that my process, my journey has to change. I have to be very careful not to overdo it. I have to keep an eye on things. Like I said, you know, I've got that nerve pain again now. So the hand thing, it's hard to explain. Basically, when the neurologist diagnosed me with FND, she had already done I'd already had done several MRIs of, you know, my back and such, because that was one of my main symptoms. And she kept telling me that the MRIs were completely clear. So, you know, I don't read MRIs, I don't know what they say. And so when I went into sepsis and when I was in a coma, you know, we were dealing with the information that we had at the time. And the information we had at the time was that the MRIs were all clear. It was only after I woke up and after sort of like we investigated the whole, because it's not just my hand, it's my arm as well. So we investigated that. I saw a vascular surgeon, I think it is. Surgery is not an option for me. Lungs, not happening. So we saw the vascular surgeon and she came in and she was like, yeah, I was just checking your MRI. You've got like disc bulges between C5 and C6 and there's a lot of nerve damage. And so what she thinks happened is because of that, and because I had an arterial line in my right arm because I was in ICU in a coma, and because I've had so many either arterial blood gases or arterial lines, there's so much scar tissue, it rested on a nerve, basically. It created this perfect storm where, because I wasn't moving, because coma, and because of the nerves trapped in my back and the nerves being trapped in my wrist, it led to this. And while there is, you know, we're doing physio, we're making sure that we're doing as much as we can to try and get movement back, I will say that there's been very little change since I woke up. I can now wheel myself, which is awesome, but that's about the only change. So it's just a case of adapting, living with it. Like I said, I got new keyboards, new mouse. I mean, my hand was always my mouse hand, so it's been a learning curve trying to work out how to use a mouse and all the rest of it. But yes, that's where I've been, that's what happened. I'm aware that this is probably very disjointed because so many of my memories aren't my memories. I have no memory of the coma. I don't remember anything about it. And so I'm relying on like talking to my mum and talking to B, and like I said, they gave me information in very small chunks. And even then, I think I said in like one of the other videos that I did sort of like as updates, it feels like basically my life from like that day or those couple of days in October to maybe the beginning of February are all just this haze of I don't know what's happening. So it's hard to pick out and really sort of like structure it in a way where I'm giving you all the details in an orderly fashion. So yeah, take that as you will. I'm already up to like 20 minutes and I've still got to try and caption this. So yes, as I said, from June 1st, I will be back to work. It will be slow, it will be steady. It will be older videos first, simply because I have them recorded and I don't want to put undue pressure on myself. And I will try and keep updating on Thursdays, but we'll see. So yeah, if you got it this far, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.